this the NFL, man. This is not fantasy football. This game's about winning football games all the time. And if you can find a way to win them, that's all that really matters.
That was
Byron Leftwich,
yeah.
offensive coordinator. Maybe he needs to get more into fantasy football. Offense hasn't been too good this year, Byron.
Yeah, listen, by the way, I agree with you. The goal is for you guys to win games, and you haven't, Byron Leftwich.
Wow.
You have the greatest quarterback that literally ever lived. You have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. They got you Julio Jones in the offseason, Russell Gage, Leonard Fournette. Your front office gave you Rashad White, a nice little rookie. I mean, and the offense looks terrible.
It looks terrible.
The offense looks terrible, and I understand you've dealt with some injuries, but every NFL team has. And so, I'm with you. It's not fantasy football. It's real football. And so sitting on my fantasy football desk over here, let me just tell you, the real football looks terrible, dude.
Wow.
You have Tom Brady. You've managed 6. You're in the worst division of football, and you've managed 6 wins.
Wow.
That quote offended me, and not because of the fantasy football piece of it.
I feel like you took
I
that
hadn't
one
seen
personally.
that, but we're just trying to win football games. No, you're not. I don't like it was awful. Tom Brady has bailed them out.
Yeah.
Like they should have lost to the Saints. Brady bails them out. And even with that miracle bailout by Brady, they still only have 6 wins on the year.
He's really taking this one personally. You should come on Sunday wearing a Nick Bosa jersey.
Let's
get Tom Brady. Let's get Byron Leftwich.
I don't know. I react strongly when you have coaches on a podium who have not done a good job this year.
Yep.
And again, I'm not in those locker rooms. I don't know everything that Byron Leftwich is dealing with. But what I will tell you is that every NFL coach is judged on a record. That's the gig. Don't hate the player, hate the game. That's the gig. It's the old Bill Parcells quote. You are what your record says, right? That's what it is. And Byron Leftwich, you're the coordinator of an offense that has only 6 wins this season in the worst division in football. And so I get annoyed when coaches get up there and start lecturing us, us little morons, about and you're just like, dude, you know what? We'll praise you. It's very simple. It's very simple. The scoreboard. We're not talking about fantasy. We talk about fantasy football because that's our gig. We're not asking you to talk about fantasy football. We're asking you why your offense sucks. And why with the greatest quarterback literally that ever lived, the most successful quarterback in NFL history, a guy who last year, it's not like, he's old. Last year played at an elite level. I believe he led the NFL in passing yards and passing touchdowns last year. And yet, with no Bruce Arians, now the offense suddenly looks terrible. You tell me, Byron Leftwich.
Wow.
That's not fantasy football. That's just actual NFL knowledge.
Unreal. And to turn the knife.
Am I wrong? Tell me I'm wrong. Yell at me. Tell me I'm wrong.
I'm sick of watching Tom Brady throw 50 times to get the 270 yards every week. It's
seriously.
Unbelievable.
Scheme somebody open, Byron Leftwich. How about that?
As we're about to get to, he's doing a bunch of stuff that I think is limiting this offense as well.
Yes, give me some stats to back up my rant here, Pat Kerrane.
Yeah, so, first of all, when you watch the Buccaneers, the only time they actually look good is when they're in game-winning drive mode, where they have to turn it over to Tom Brady, and then he has to pass in their hurry-up mode. What they're doing in their normal offense is they're running the ball heavily on first down. I talked about why that can be a problem with the Raiders. It's really a problem when you don't have Josh Jacobs, and instead you have the least efficient rushing offense in the entire NFL. They're burning first downs on inefficient running plays. That's setting Tom Brady up to have more difficult throws on second and third down. He has not played as well as he has last year, but that's not the way to design an offense around Tom Brady. Let him be the one who's the engine of this offense, not the worst running game in the league.
Yep, 100%.
Thank you very much. Right, exactly.
Good speeches in this
you put Tom Brady in second and long and third and long in these tough matchups, by the way. And the blocking hasn't been there, right? And some of that's due to injury, but whatever.
Yep.
Byron Leftwich, throw another tight end there.
Well,
go to more 12 personnel. Give the guy some time.
In this game, start of the season, this would have looked like one of the great fantasy-rich matchups of all time with players across the board. And some of those players you're definitely starting. Chris Godwin, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, they're all getting started. But let's talk about some guys who are a bit more borderline, and because this is a fantasy-poor matchup, the total is only 37.5. Preseason, I would have thought that would be 15 points higher. Wasn't expecting that Trey Lance would be gone and Jimmy Garoppolo gone. But, Matthew, let's talk about the Bucs backfield. Leonard Fournette, Rashad White, Mike Evans. These guys, who's starting?
I suppose it's all dependent, right? I mean, I'll say that you're probably starting Mike Evans. Like, if there's something to hang your hat on, it's two things. He ran the most routes out of any Buccaneers wide receiver in Week 13, and he's Mike Evans, who has been very good for much of his NFL career. That's really what you're hanging your hat on. And I mean, like, I have a wide receiver 20. There's nothing in recent history to suggest that you can point to, right? I mean, like, since Week 9, he's been the 56th best wide receiver in fantasy football. He's been under 60 receiving yards in 4 straight. He's had 0 end zone targets in 6 of the past 8. So it's really like you're banking on reputation here and the fact that there's 6 teams on a bye. Yep. If you wanted to bench Mike Evans, I would get it. Again, I have him at 20, which I think is the lowest I have ranked him in a long, long time here. So that's where I am on Evans. As for the running backs, I think both are viable flex plays here. And the reason is because I prefer Rashad White to Leonard Fournette, just because Fournette is sore. He's sore today. They're hoping he'll be ready by Sunday. If you see some of the reports out of Buccaneers camp, I don't think it's 100% given that Fournette plays in this one. He's going to try to gut it out. So I prefer Rashad White to Leonard Fournette. But to your point, Pat, like, all they're doing is dumping down. Yes. Like, I mean, my expectation, I wouldn't want to start either of these guys in a non-PPR league, but assuming you're playing in a PPR league, I do think that both these guys, especially White, who's had at least 8 targets each of the last 2 games, are viable. It's worth noting the Niners give up the 7th most targets per game to opposing running backs, which makes sense. They get pressure. Brady doesn't want to throw deep. You're going to be dumping it off. So that's my expectation here, is that it's a big running backs in Godwin game in the passing game for Brady.
Yep. And Godwin's average depth of target way down. He's almost operating like Hunter Renfrow was last year in terms of the super, super shallow, not really creating any like big play opportunity for him downfield. And then Evans is operating as this super deep threat, which I think is a really bad fit for this matchup where Brady is going to want to dump off a lot. So White would be pretty interesting if Fournette's out, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And if Fournette's, again, I think they're both, sort of touchdown-dependent flexes, but likely usable in a week with 6 teams on a bye. Just yes or no, are you starting Mike Evans?
I am looking for other options. We're going to get to another team here in a second, but I'll note the Buccaneers have a lower implied team total than the Broncos.
Yeah, that's ugly. Now, other side of the field, Pat, any concerns for Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk?
I'm concerned for both of them. I think if you look at what the 49ers did last week, Brock Purdy played well. But, in terms of efficiency, accuracy, he's kind of similar to Mike White. I think we kind of think of him as the 49ers version of Mike White. We like Mike White. Mike White turned Garrett Wilson into a star.
Right.
That's awesome for the Jets. If we have one fantasy viable guy in San Francisco, not so awesome. It's kind of a different situation, and I think we could end up in that situation this week where you could see passing volume come way down. 41 combined attempts for Garoppolo and Purdy last week. They're going against the Tampa Bay run defense that's pretty weak. I think they're going to go much more run heavy than they were last week. Volume's going to be down. Christian McCaffrey's set up for a really nice game, but outside of him, it's tough to really trust Ayuk or Deebo. I think they got to get in the end zone.
Okay. I think it's fair, although I'll just say it would be hard for me to bench Deebo Samuel. I think because of Brock Purdy, they're going to actually want to use Deebo more creatively. I think maybe you see him get some more runs, some sweeps and that kind of stuff, some design, bubble screens to try to get him. I think they'll try to create mismatches. They'll do a little bit what they did with Baker Mayfield last night, which is they're going to roll Brock Purdy out and just give him some easy pitch and catch stuff and try to create mismatches and just use the speed of the Niners in yards after the catch.
Yep.
Not asking to do much.
Let's go to Dolphins-Chargers, Sunday Night Football on NBC.
And
Matthew
Peacock.
And Peacock as well.
Look at you, company man.
Dolphins, 3.5-point favorites. The total is 52. Pat, why is this a fantasy-rich matchup?
I think it's a bounce back spot for both teams here. Tua Tagovailoa obviously did not play well last week, but he had Teron Armstead out. Looks like we might get him back. That's their left tackle. I think a pretty big deal that he was out last week, particularly in the matchup. And then speaking of matchup, the matchup gets way easier here, going from the 49ers to the Chargers. 49ers strong against both the pass and the run. Chargers very weak against both the pass and the run. And we have signals from the Dolphins that they want to be aggressive in the passing game when they have the choice of either passing heavily or running heavily. 2 weeks ago, they were very pass heavy against the Texans defense that can't stop anything. They really leaned into the pass against the 49ers. Obviously, they were kind of discombobulated. The whole offense wasn't working. But I think it's still a positive sign that they didn't try to establish the run against the 49ers run defense that's very, very strong. So I think kind of given the choice of the two, they will be pass first here. I think Tagovailoa is going to be helping them put up points, and that should also push the Chargers to the air. The Chargers have not fought game script. When they've been in kind of high passing environments, they pass a lot. So I think this is going to be a back and forth game. Potentially the Chargers a little bit more competent on offense with Mike Williams looking like he's going to be back in the lineup.
Yep. Okay, Matthew, you're definitely starting Tua Tagovailoa, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. They start themselves, but Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson in the backfield. Are you comfortable starting both of them against the Chargers run day?
I am, because of those three words you just ended that sentence.
Chargers run D?
Chargers run D.
Yeah,
I mean,
very bad.
No team in the NFL gives up more yards per carry to opposing running backs. They give up 5.6 yards per carry. They give the second most rushing yards per game to opposing running backs. You know what I mean? They've allowed over 150 rushing yards in 6 straight games. The Chargers' run defense is so bad. You think it might be coached by Josh McDaniels.
Yeah,
there you go.
Thank
you.
All right.
God bless. Try the fries. 2 shows Sunday. God bless.
Try the chicken fingers.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know chicken fingers for me. Don't try those. Anyway, but I do think, right, just the point of Pat saying, in terms of, I think this is a bounce back game for both offenses. I absolutely do as well. I think we expect this to be a very high scoring game on Sunday Night Football. My expectation here is that both running backs get unleashed here. I think you can see it. I'm not worried about the fact that Wilson only got the 1 touch last week. I'm throwing out, right, we expect the Dolphins' offensive line to be healthier as well. And so I think both guys are viable RB2s this week, or at the very worst, high-end flex. I love the matchup and I love the offense, and I want a piece of this game with those guys.
Pat, Mike Williams, he's practicing, looks like he's going to play. Can you trust him in this matchup?
Yeah, I think you can. It's such a weak for wide receivers, and there's so many teams out on bye that, you're risking getting burned again with Mike Williams re-injuring the ankle mid-game as happened last time. But he's played pretty well this year, and he's drawing coverage at a high rate, 26% double coverage rate. I think he's going to help open up the offense, just kind of, allow bigger games for everybody else. But then in terms of his fantasy value, this game environment should do a lot for him. If the Chargers are having to throw to keep up with the Dolphins, which is what I expect to happen, then he should be able to get there.
Okay, let's get to Chiefs-Broncos, which I wasn't expecting to see in this section, but Pat will get into the reasons why. But first, let's hear from Pat and his ode to Isaiah Pacheco.
Oh, yeah, this was last week. No, we'll just stare awkwardly into the camera. It's probably going to be queued up any minute now. There we go.
Pacheco, you beat our Ojo. 'Cause Andy Reid's crew, they really trust you. And there's some fantasy teams, they're in trouble, they're on the bubble. They need to make the playoffs. So how about you pay off and score 2 touchdowns? Score 2 touchdowns against the Bengals. Score 2 touchdowns. Let's go, Isaiah Pacheco, score 2 touchdowns. Score 2 touchdowns against the Bengals. Score 2 touchdowns. Let's go, Isaiah Pacheco.
Incredible stuff there from you, Pat. Also incredible choreographed clapping.
The breakout star was the clapping
there. No. Listen, Pat powering through that awful clapping is amazing. And Connor and I both blame each other. Because I was following him, and he claims he was following me. And I'm like, dude, I was just following you. You were offbeat, but I'm just like, I'm trying to keep up with him. He's saying I was offbeat. And I'm just like, I don't know. He's the one who started clapping. I wasn't going to clap because I hadn't heard the song before. Yeah. And so, anyway.
We love Connor Rogers. That was Connor Rogers'
We do love Connor Rogers. We don't love Connor Rogers clapping. I want to be very clear about
speeding
that.
up.
What was he doing with the kind of shaping of the hand?
I don't know.
Understand
it was awful. Anyway, Pat's the real MVP for powering through that. That was brutal in terms of the clapping. The song was brilliant. The song was awesome. And by the way, Isaiah Pacheco had a good game last week.
Yeah, he delivered for you, Pat.
Not 2 touchdowns, but 1. We'll take it.
Can't get greedy. All right, Chiefs, 9.5-point favorites at the Broncos. We know Cortland Sutton. The total is 44. Now, why is this a fantasy-rich environment?
Well, I mean, obviously the real fantasy-rich environment of the week is the Lions-Vikings, but I wanted to just kind of highlight this game as maybe not as fantasy poor as you think. We're looking at a Chiefs team that I think is looking for a bit of a bounce back after the Bengals game. And you saw what they did last week. They were actually efficient running the ball. They were efficient passing the ball. Mahomes didn't have his biggest game because the Chiefs went run first for the first time all season. He had his fewest dropbacks of the year, fewest passing attempts of the year. The Broncos are strong against both the run and the pass. There's no reason for the Chiefs to shift to the run like they did against the Bengals, and the Bengals are weak against the run. That game plan made sense. But here, I think they're going to kind of power through a tough Broncos defense, and Mahomes is playing far, far better than the quarterbacks they've played this year. I honestly think the Broncos pass defense could look kind of average against Patrick Mahomes. I'm not worried about him in this matchup. And then if that's the case, we get a Broncos team that's actually getting pushed a little bit. They've been terrible this year, but it isn't helping that their pass defense is also great, and they're in these super low-scoring game environments. So I think that could help a little bit. Plus, we have Courtland Sutton out, so we're looking at a little bit more of a condensed target tree, which helps.
Matthew, just on my rundown, players definitely starting. Chiefs, says Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce. Broncos, says not applicable.
Right.
So there's not a single Bronco that you're definitely starting, that you feel comfortable starting, but some guys that you got to weigh up. Jerry Jeudy, Greg Dulcich, Latavius Murray, what are you doing with them?
Yeah, I mean, I think the word you used yesterday, and I think it was a correct one, was uninspiring.
Yes.
So, look, would I be excited to put Jerry Jeudy into my lineup? I would not be. But if you want me to make the case for Jerry Jeudy, what I can tell you is, to Pat's point, there will be no Courtland Sutton. We do expect him to be down in this game and having to throw. He has had at least 60 yards in each of his past 3 healthy games. He is playing a Chiefs defense that is allowing the 4th most fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers and the 2nd most touchdowns allowed to wide receivers. Now, so far in his NFL pro career, Jerry Jeudy's been mostly allergic to touchdowns, but who knows, maybe that changes. Greg Dulcich, you know, the bar for success is so low in tight ends, and he did have a 38% target share last week as well. 85 yards as well. Kansas City's pretty good against tight end, but again, condensed target tree here. If I'm playing DFS and I wanted to punt, maybe Kendall Hinton becomes interesting, like as a punt play in a GPP. But I will say that Latavius Murray, and we'll see, they'll probably get some, you'll probably see more Mike Boone this week, but it's worth noting that Latavius Murray, 21 touches in 2 of the last 3. Chiefs allow the 2nd most catches, the 4th most yards per game to opposing running backs, and I certainly think at least early in this game, while it's still close, they're going to try to control the clock as much as possible and not let Mahomes be Mahomes.
All right, Pat. Chiefs side, your man Isaiah Pacheco, Juju Smith-Schuster, you comfortable with either of those guys?
Yeah, I think Isaiah Pacheco, clear bet as the Chiefs eventually are in a position to salt away this game, which they should be eventually. So same bet as it was last week. You're hoping he gets in the end zone once, maybe twice. And then Juju was up above 80% in terms of route participation last week. I think you can trust him here. I think you can feel confident that he's the one wide receiver who's going to be out there a bunch. The other thing is that, you're not feeling great about MVS, but he should be out there more than he was last week because with that run-first game plan that they rolled out for the first time all year, they went with more power personnel, and that limited the kind of non-Juju wide receiver, and that was a rotation between MVS, Justin Watson, and Sky Moore a little bit. So there should be more like wide receiver routes available, which also helps.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.